Well, I just want to start off, first of all, by saying I'm probably going to disappoint everybody because I do not have a story about strippers in my talk, so. So it's a pretty tough act to follow, you know. So, so basically what we want to kind of go through is our journey. It's the easiest way to kind of describe it, and I think some of you may relate, some of you may not relate. It really just depends. But really our story starts a little bit before. I mean, I came from a background, cradle Catholic, so did she. But again, it was just that typical Sunday, going to Sunday Mass, and that was it. I did get involved in youth group and started to develop a little bit more, and I was a little bit ahead of her as far as the spiritual life, right, pretty much. And just got to make sure. So when we got married, you know, it was actually, and for some families it's not like this, but I was spiritual, in a sense, a spiritual leader from the beginning, which is kind of fortunate. Now, it wasn't that strong, and so I started searching, and I don't know how I came across Saint Therese of Lisieux, but her story of a soul, I started reading it, and I just was blown away at the fact that I did not have this intimacy with God. Okay, I didn't have this burning desire and love for God. And so what happened is I just started searching more, and you know, I started thinking, you know, I started talking to the parish pastor and the assistant pastor, who we knew pretty well, and talking about this sort of thing, and how do you develop that? How do you grow in that? And, sorry, there we go. So what I started to do was really ask him, what could I do? And so I ended up buying a Roman Missal, which I have right here. This is the one. And I was all excited to tell Father Papa. I was like, Father, I got the Roman Missal. I'm going to try to read daily, you know, some of the readings, the day's Mass, the readings. And he says, well, that's nice, Dan, but you should just go to Mass. Daily Mass. It's like, oh, I never thought of that. So I had never gone to daily Mass, believe it or not, before that time. And this is about 2004 at that point. So with that, really, it was interesting how that launched everything. And what ended up happening is one thing led to another very quickly, okay, very quickly. I started meeting different people. We started getting involved with, there was a big push for gay marriage in Connecticut. That's where we're from. And I just was just enraged with it all, and I just needed to do something about it. So I was really passionate to just get out there. And then I started meeting all these other great Catholic families. And, you know, just, again, God was working on me very quickly in a short time. And then we met her cousin in Portugal. He was, at the time, studying to be a priest, came to visit us. And he knew all about St. Therese. He had been reading about her, and what was really amazing was his love for God. I mean, we spent several days with him, and we were going up to Boston, and you know, it was raining. It was a miserable day, and I just couldn't believe like how patient he was, how calm he was. We were lost. Okay, we were hungry. It was like 2 o'clock, and we hadn't had lunch yet, and it was just. I was just so irritated, and I would look over, and he was just so pleasantly full of joy, you know, and it was just amazing. And so I knew that he had something that I didn't have.
If anything on the way, I'm remembering that on the way home he wanted to pray the Rosary, and it was as if he had been waiting the entire day, like this was going to be the highlight of his day. And then we got to the decade. In between decades, and he said, can we sing in between the decades? And I was like, you want to sing in between the decades? And
meanwhile, I'm really irritated.
Yeah, he's really irritated. And my 20-year-old cousin, seminarian, just nothing was bothering him. And even though we'd seen Harvard and the Art Museum and all these great things, this was the highlight of his day. And we hadn't really met. I think before that, we hadn't really met. Yeah. Someone like that, right. Or many people like that.
So in this Roman Missal, one of the things that I found early on, again, this is all before being introduced to the Legion at all, I read this section called Spiritual Game Plan. That's literally what it says here. And I got so depressed, almost. Like I was like, I can't even do half of this. You know, get up at a fixed time, pray, offer your day to God, work with order and intensity, try to attend Mass, spend some time in mental prayer, 15 minutes before the Blessed Sacrament, pray with the Angelus at noontime, pray the Rosary if possible with your family, do some spiritual reading. Only 10 to 15 minutes is sufficient. I mean, I'm reading it verbatim. I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but make a short examination of conscience at night. Weekly, center all your activities around Holy Mass on Sunday. If you do not receive Holy Communion every day, receive at least on Sundays and holy days of obligation. Again, I had no idea about any of this. Saturday is traditionally dedicated to the Blessed Virgin Mary, and honor her in a special prayer and as a family. Monthly, go to confession. I mean, I'd be lucky to go on Easter, you know. I mean, really, it was just an amazing thing. And then yearly, to attend a retreat, a 2 or 3 day retreat. So that kind of that shows you where we were at. And it was kind of interesting to see how God works in mysterious ways.
Yeah, Dan started going to daily Mass, and he wanted to join a group that would give him some structure. And I was looking, as a young family, we'd been married for a year, we had a newborn. I was looking for some examples of good families, just to be around, to see, to experience. And we were open to anything. So we were open to any organization, group, circle of friends that was going to provide that. And which is why we started volunteering at as a political action committee. It was the Family Institute of Connecticut. We were living up there at the time. And through that, there were so many Orthodox families working, volunteering there, that it was through that we met the Legion. They had invited us to, one of them had invited Dan to an evening of reflection at the seminary.
Yeah, it's an interesting, so his name is Peter Wolfgang. I don't know if any of you know him, but so he says, yeah, you got to go visit the seminary. Have you ever heard of it? I'm like, no, I've lived here in Connecticut all my life and never heard of it. And so he goes, I'll meet you there. I'll call you that I can, you know, whatever. And so I made big plans I even canceled something to be able to go, okay? So Peter calls me about an hour before going saying, I can't make it. And it was a legitimate thing. It was legitimate. And I said, oh, no problem. I'll just go, you know. I don't even know a monthly retreat. I'm thinking it's going to be relaxing. So, so what did I do? As we all know, you know, men will usually come in, you know, their suit and tie, right? I showed up in jogging pants and my slippers. You know those slip-on slippers? They look like shoes?
Look like shoes, yeah.
So anyway, I was really blown away at the Mass. During Mass is really where, you know, like Jerry Maguire said, you know, they had me at the Mass, the Legionaries. And so I just wanted to go every month, and then I ended up joining, I ended up incorporating a few months later, like probably 6 months later, at one of the retreats, Spiritual Exercises retreats. And really what ended up happening throughout that year is I grew, as you all know very well, through all the spiritual direction, through the meditations, the microphone's moving on, through all of the, you know, just I was, again, Sylvia was not involved at this point, so I was really just plugging in and experiencing God in a personal way through the holy hours every week, huge, through just the confession, and we talked about it at our table today, just living in a state of grace changes you. We gotta fix this. So living in that state of grace really changes you, and she started to see that.
Right. I didn't join until I read a lot of stuff online about the whole everything, and I just had to check this out kind of from afar, you know, and I watched my husband and saw a change, which is what prompted me to want to go to some retreats. I was going to some anyway because I liked everything that I was learning, and there was a certain amount of excitement about things that how is it that I was able to go through catechism all those years and not know some of the most basic things. And so I really didn't join until I saw the changes in my husband. I mean, if anything, a quick story about the rosary. We used to take us 40 minutes to get from my parents' house or from our home to my parents' home. And our son would be asleep within the first 10 minutes, so we'd have this half an hour, and my husband would say, do you want to pray the rosary? And I would say, we have this beautiful, quiet time. We can review our week. We can talk about the week that's coming. And you want to pray why would you want to pray the rosary right now? And so fast forward to a couple nights ago, last night we probably did something even nicer with the kids, but it's a change of attitude. It's not so much I can check off all my commitments now, because there are many days that I can't do that. And I'd be lucky if I can dip my hands in the holy water font and say, God help me, Because we have a little holy water font in our kitchen, and that sort of recenters my day, if I can just bless myself and say, God help me, with all the tasks that I have coming up. So it's not so much a matter of how great I am, because now I can check off my commitments, and before I couldn't, and I didn't. There's been this change of attitude, as if prayer is something forced that is of my own doing. There's no need to force it. It was more of a change of attitude. And so this sort of growth in holiness led to a stronger marriage and wanting to share it with other people. So you get excited about the things that you learn, become more active in your parish. We asked the pastor, what would you like? Where do you need help? And he said, well, we need Eucharistic ministers. Can you volunteer with that? And eventually got trusted with NFP talks for the marriage preparation courses, which were happening. The diocese would have the marriage preparation courses just by divine providence at our parish. So we started to do that. Did you?
Yeah, and then to kind of round this out, really what ended up happening is I'm going to encounters, and I had a great team up there in Connecticut. We're still in Connecticut. And there was one day we decided to, came into my encounter, and Bob Marcarelli, I don't know if any of you know him, but he's a great salesman. No, but he's a very holy man, and he just threw down a piece of paper like this, said, "Oh, the legionaries are looking for somebody to work in development office, if anyone's interested." I'm like, no, not really, And I just sat there, and Gary Tennyson, he's a doctor, okay, he's a doctor, a scientist, starts asking all these questions about it, and I'm thinking, why are we talking about this? And you're not going to take the job, you're whatever, so. I'm just listening and absorbing all of this, and then didn't even think about it. And on the way home, it just struck me like a lightning bolt, where, how could you pass it off so easily? And again, my prayer life, it wasn't the greatest, of course. There's always, you always slack off a little bit, but I knew enough to hear the voice of the Holy Spirit, and I said yes. And what's interesting is 2 months before, I started the new year saying, I will do whatever you want, Lord. Just let me know crystal clear what that is. Be careful of that, by the way. So for 3 years, I worked for the Legion. And so, and very happily, and then actually was able to return back to my old job. But during this time, it was really interesting that I worked in Connecticut, and when I came to visit Atlanta and came to visit the school at Pinecrest, it really hit me hard how much I wanted my kids to go there. And so, I kind of put a bug in somebody's ear that I wouldn't mind moving down there if it ever was possible. And what ended up happening is in the end of 2008, and if you think of the timeline of things, I moved down. I'm all happy, right? We're all, we're excited. And I'm in the office there in Alpharetta, gung-ho. And literally, it was probably 2 months. The whole thing just fell, right? With the founder. And we were talking about at this table. I wasn't even thinking about it, but Bruce pointed out, how did you survive that and still be able to, I guess, be here today, right? Talking to everybody. I really don't know, other than just God's grace and knowing that the school is great for my children. The movement is great for my family, and that's really just, I thought I'd share it. I wasn't even planning to share that.
I guess,
I did want to say something about the retreat. So back in Connecticut, before moving down, though, we did get involved very much so, and there's this word I actually like to use now. It's called humble boldness. We actually put on a retreat for 200 kids, and we had about over 400 people come to the Sunday Mass with the Archbishop. And again, we worked as an RC family because we were teamed up with so many other great families in the parish, and my Encounter team as well helped support us through that whole apostolate. That I know there's a whole talk about that, but kind of like our growth in holiness, and we're still growing, drove us to care. We cared about what was going on and the lack of teaching in the church about the Eucharist. So that's why it inspired us to do this Youth 2000 was called, Eucharistic Center Retreat.
This day is meant to be more as not so much a talk as it is sort of an introduction or a springboard to your dialoguing with each other about this topic and how you've grown and changed, hopefully, in attitude and prayer and so on, and in your own individual journeys and as a couple. So we wanted to end by saying that we're trying at least to take what we've learned and do our best to make our own family a good example, I guess. I mean, we try, like you said. And so we wanted to close with a quote from Lumen Gentium. Furthermore, married couples and Christian parents should follow their own proper path to holiness by faithful love. They should sustain one another in grace throughout the entire length of their lives. They should imbue their offspring, lovingly welcomed as God's gift, with Christian doctrine and evangelical virtues. A like example, but one given in a different way, is that offered by widows and single people who are able to make great contributions towards holiness and apostolic endeavor in the church. So with that, we hope you enjoy your speaking with each other, dialoguing with each other.